It's not about B2B and B2C and it's about B2H. At the end of it, there's a human, and that human, we know, for example, that our clients watch sports and over-index on sports. And so while we are buying many of the mediums that our competitors are buying, we are also pivoting and saying, let's be in places where they are not, and let's go to our partners and create unique platforms that you can't get anyplace else.
Today, I'm joined by Theresa McLaughlin, CMO of T. Rowe Price, and the first CMO interviewed with an Emmy. And for good reason. Theresa led campaigns that went viral faster than any promotion in banking history. Her work as CMO at Citizens Financial Group is what brought that Emmy home. At TD Bank, her automated thanking machine transformed TD into Canada's most valuable brand. But Theresa's superpower isn't just the creative. It's her knack for getting buy-in from the C-suite all the way across the business. In this episode, she breaks down the metrics that are front and center on her dashboard, her playbook for how you get buy-in to transformation, and the hard-won lessons from leading an 800-strong team with a $500 million marketing budget. So let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Theresa. Hey, Theresa. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi there. Great to be here. Thank you for having me, Max.
You're very welcome. Well, you're the first CMO I've ever interviewed that has an Emmy.
Right there over my shoulder. Look at that.
I know, alongside a bunch of other awards. And I think the Emmy was for your work at Citizens Financial Group. Is that right?
That's true. And more importantly, it was for a nonprofit I was working with when I was at Citizens around homelessness in Massachusetts. So it was a really great cause. And we got our agency and our partners to contribute and told a great story. And it really helped the cause in a big way. And so that was where that Emmy is from. Quite proud of it.
Amazing. Well, I love that.
Yeah.
And you know, as I was doing my research, which I do for all of our guests, that was true at TD Ameritrade. You had the thank you campaign that I still remember to this day, received a ton of accolades as well. And you're now on your journey to doing that with T. Rowe Price at the helm there as CMO. So with all of those awards behind you, I think there's some Effies there as well. And the Emmy, it all speaks to your ability to bring creativity and emotion to finance, which we know is very much lacking. But during my research, and I spoke to your colleagues, I spoke to some other CMOs that know you very well. They all told me you're it's all good, don't worry. During that, they all pointed to the same fact that your real superpower is actually in driving transformation. So transformation across marketing, digital, customer experience, like the whole organization. So creative chops for sure we can talk about, but really what I want to try and get the value for our audience today is digging into your ability to get that C-suite buy-in to that transformation. So
Sure.
if it's okay with you, we can just start there.
Yeah, sounds great. Terrific. Look, I think I appreciate the compliment. That is probably, one of the higher compliments you could give to a career marketer is that, I can speak the language of the business and translate marketing to business outcomes, because that's what we're there to do, right? We're not an island unto ourselves. And many times marketers come to the table with this dictionary of weird words. And I'm sorry, what is ad tech and martech? And why are you talking language like that? And so I think first and foremost, you have to become a student of the business, regardless what business you're in. And finance can be a very complex topic. And I think you have to simplify what is the business problem or opportunity, and then simplify the marketing connection and connect the two. There's been many times as I've sat around the executive table that I've said, this is not a marketing problem. I've run product management before. This is a product problem. This is a pricing problem. This is a distribution problem. So being really clear on what the opportunity is and the problem you're solving. And then if it is a marketing opportunity, most companies I've worked for in financial services are very quantitative. And so it is using numbers to connect the dots, right? And so certainly at T. Rowe, an incredibly quantitative company. In fact, we're an active asset manager. What that means is that's the opposite of passive. Passive is as it sounds, right? It's set again. It's kind of set it and forget it. Where what T. Rowe does is creates alpha by asking better questions, right? That's what active management, our campaign is all about. And so when I sat with our leadership team, I'm just passing my 3-year mark with T. Rowe after being with TD for almost 8. And it was all about trying to make sure that I helped them understand in simple terms what problem we were solving and connecting those dots, not throwing acronyms at them and using the data to be able to do that. And so, one example is that, we created a QBR. And so that's a quarterly business review. Every business had one. I said, well, why wouldn't marketing have a quarterly business review? Well, what would you be reviewing? What do you have to do with our business? Doing marketing, right? So connecting that, no, there are metrics. Our job is to drive sales and flow and growth. And so we created a scorecard to help make that connection point. That's just one of many ways that I think you can do.
And I want to get into the detail on that scorecard in a second, but like, why do you think so many CMOs struggle? Because I think, the more CMOs I speak to, it's kind of a given that CMOs now know, look, you've got to go in and speak the language of the business, and you've got to talk in metrics and talk revenue to the rest of the C-suite. But why do you think CMOs often struggle to actually get that to land?
Yeah, I think because they make it complex. So you go from feast to famine to feast, right? Where we did it as well. I did it at TD. We created a scorecard there, and we ended up having 4 pages, teeny tiny type, lots and lots of metrics. And so what I'm trying to do, we're still working on it here at T Rowe, is to start with what's our company's strategy and business objectives, connect that to our sales and distribution objectives, connect that to marketing strategies and then tactics, and then a couple of simple metrics, not 1,000. So I'll give you an example. What T Rowe wants to be known for in the future is a little different than what we were known for in the past. We're a large cap, largely US based, largely mutual fund company. We are now big into ETFs. We went from 0 to 6 billion, just recently, right? Because we're telling the story of that. We're into SMAs. We're a retirement leader. As people are thinking about retirement income, we have a point of view on that. And so we're not going to walk away from who we've been, but we've got to build on it and tell that story. Rather than giving 19 pages on how we can tell the story, let's just use ETFs as an example. We picked 2 metrics and we said, do our clients know that we offer this product? That's called awareness, right? Or consideration, depending upon which metric you're using. Do they? What's the percentage today? Well, it's this. Well, then we built a model, call it a regression model. You don't have to call it that, but that says we have to, in order to break through all the noise that are in the marketplace, we have to be at here. Our awareness has to go to here, and our share of voice has to be Y. Those are the 2 metrics, share of voice and awareness of us as a provider. There's a lot of other things I can talk about. I can talk about website hits. I can talk about thought leadership pieces, events that are working. But we just picked 2 simple metrics, and those are the ones that we're focusing on. And quarter after quarter, we come back to our management team and we say, give us this amount of money. This is what we're doing with it. This is what we said we're doing, and this is what we're doing. I think it's also important to break out leading versus lagging indicators. Brand favorability moves glacially. So if you think you're going to do that quarterly, everyone's going to be frustrated. Website hits move quarterly, right? So I think the metrics piece really being choiceful. And we spent a lot of time with our finance team, and they said, I don't get it. You've explained it. I don't get it. I don't understand this language. I don't understand these words. How do they connect to this? And I have incredibly smart finance partners. It's just that we were not speaking their language. And as I said, we're still getting there, but I think it's about simplicity.
And so the other big challenge, as well as getting buy-in that marketers have right now, is getting budget. So how do you, let's
Yes.
take this like awareness example that you used. So you can sort of show, look, more people know about us now, more people know about the products. But is the follow-up question to that, well, how much revenue has that driven? Like how far are you going to connect the strategy
Yeah.
to revenue outcomes?
Yeah, for sure. It's hard, right? Especially I'm used to working in a B2C environment where you can directly make the connection. When I was at TD and I started there, 5% we were in the middle of the digital revolution. 5% of our revenue was coming from digital. And when I left, it was over 50. So we had swung the pendulum to performance over brand, right? Probably too far, but because it was so measurable. And at the time, there was nobody arguing over third-party data, et cetera, some of the things we're talking about today. But it was extremely measurable. If you give me $1 million with precision, I can tell you how many accounts, the quality of those accounts, stickiness of those accounts. In in a world where TR has a much more complex, sophisticated distribution network, B2C, B2B2C, intermediary, advisory, right? Including consumers, it's a longer lead time. And so there's not that direct connection of I spend today and tomorrow I get. And so it's really important for us to be able to show the connection to the sales funnel, those lagging and leading indicators, and then put metrics in over time. And then importantly, to have a management team that has the patience to wait. Right. And so that's where we try to talk about green shoots and say, while this is going to take time to grow, this tree is eventually going to get really big. These are some indicators that are saying we're going in the right direction. We're no longer just known as a large cap mutual fund player. Is T. Rowe known as, an ETF provider? That number is moving north. Is T. Rowe known as being a leader in retirement? That number is starting to move. We're using surround sound, thought leadership, and events and marketing to help drive that. And we're trying to connect all those dots to these are the two metrics we're moving. And that when you move those, you start to get down funnel impact. So
So
it's
what are
it's
the
complex.
totally, and also I love that you're just you're able to you have the credibility to set the scene with your exec team to say, look, this is going to take time, and they just have to trust that.
It's not always easy, right? We're a company that was in outflows last year and facing the same challenges other asset managers were facing. And it's not easy to have the courage to spend in the face of that and to trust in that. But I'm fortunate to work for a really good brand. We've got a new CEO who's very dynamic and sort of saying, hey, what got us here is not going to get us into the future. We've got to try to do some things differently than in the past. And it's paying off.
So you have these sort of two simple metrics on your management scorecard or your exec scorecard, but what are the metrics on your dashboard? What are you checking in on quarterly for your marketing team?
Couple of things. I mean, first and foremost, whether it's not about B2B and B2C and it's about B2H. At the end of it, there's a human. And that human, we know, for example, that our clients watch sports and over-index on sports. And so while we are buying, many of the mediums that our competitors are buying, we are also pivoting and saying, let's be in places where they are not. And let's go to our partners and create unique platforms that you can't get anyplace else. So, for example, we just did a deal with the Baltimore Orioles. Works perfectly for us. They're right in our backyard. By the way, they're in the postseason. They're doing really well. But we had to look at a number of different metrics, right? Do they give back to the community? How are associates going to feel about it? There's a patch on the jersey, right? Are people going to like that? Are they going to feel like this is one of the most storied ballparks in all of baseball? Is that something that people are going to want? So we got through all of that. And at the end of the day, after a 40-page deck, I boiled it down to one metric, which is we're going to go by this many impressions through mass media. It would cost us X. And here's the same number of impressions we're going to get here for Y. And number two, the engagement with those is going to be, 3, 4, 5 times more engaged because of the connection to baseball, right? Versus seeing it in a traditional publication. We don't just do that, but we have smaller budgets than our competitors, and we have to find ways to break through the clutter to get our message across. And so the answer to what we measure on a regular basis is just that. We have key initiatives that are tied to our company's key initiatives. We've signed up for key metrics, 2 or 3, not 100. And we have a scorecard that we keep. And on our quarterly business review, we look at those metrics.
And how much of this, so let's, I'm interested in how you get to that point to make the decision that you're going to invest in awareness and you're going to direct spend in different areas. Where are you getting the intelligence to inform that decision? Is it gut instinct or is it pure metrics on where your competitors are spending?
I mean, the honest question is that you need both, right? I mean, you get to the stage of your, experience and there's judgment involved, right? And you have to believe in the recommendations you're putting forward. And so that is really important. I've been in financial services my whole career. And so certainly judgment comes into it. And I've got a fabulous team. My team's just really world. And so people trust my team as well. So that's really important. But they're data driven. And so you have a lot of first party data and financial. If you're in retail, I was at a conference last week and a CMO I was talking to was in the clothing industry. And it's not whole lot of information you get if I walk in and buy a pair of jeans and walk out and pay for it with my credit card. They have to infer. They have to use third-party data to try to understand my wants and needs and how I'm dressing differently post-COVID, et cetera. You come to us and we have your financial information and we take that sacred, right? When in banking, it's the same thing. You give us a mortgage, we know everything about you. How we use that data responsibly to give you better answers is what we do. And so we have a lot of data, first party data about our clients that we use to help make our clients better.
Got you. So then you've established your buy-in with the C-suite, you've then sort of laid out the strategy with very simple metrics, and then you lay on the budget based on the intelligence that you built, first party and third party. I'm struggling to get my head around just sort of the scale of the business. So, I love the simplicity of sort of business to human, but, you are talking about multiple different business lines, multiple different geographies. How do
Yes.
you then turn that into an actual marketing strategy across the full funnel?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I'm oversimplifying what is a very complex business. And we have shared that with our board and our management companies team is like, these are all the languages we have to deal with. These are all the assets that we have to deal with. It is a very complex job. There's no doubt about that. Um, so I think, as you said, once you have the strategy and the objectives, you've built models, you have credibility, you've told your story, and then you're measuring against that and against that data. It's really important. But then it's like peeling back an onion. Then you start to look at it segment by segment. So I've got centers of excellence that report to me at T Rowe, and I've got segment leaders that report to me, to your point. So someone is waking up in Japan and has very different needs than someone who is waking up in Baltimore or someone who is in Italy or someone who is in Australia. It's different product set, different client needs, different sales force, different stage of the brand and awareness. And so there's no way you can have a one size fits all. Everything I described to you, you're rightfully pointing out, perhaps I oversimplified, because once you have the umbrella, then you need to double click. And that's where our segment leaders come in. We've got segment CMOs who sit around the business tables day in and day out, partnering elbow to elbow with the people who are driving the business. And they're coming in and saying, hey, this client had this problem or this need, but cash is on the sideline. What are we doing about that? Or the market went up or the market went down, or what's going to happen to the election and what do we think that's going to mean, or what's happening with the war and what's the implications there, or this bank just went under. How are we going to quickly communicate to our clients? Are there any implications? Better questions, timely, getting in front of our clients. And so some of it is hand-to-hand combat. It is not the stuff I'm talking about, right? It is just right there the next day. What are we doing to meet our clients' needs? And that's why I like the model we have, which is that we have marketers that are sitting around the business line tables. And it's the same at TD. I had segment marketers and other marketers. And so that you're ending up with bottoms up marketing strategies built from the business needs, top down enterprise strategies, and then moving those together to say, connect the dots and simplify it for the enterprise.
And how do you do that well? We were speaking to Adam Nash a couple of weeks ago, and he was, he's one of the great Silicon Valley product builders, and he's a big believer in this empowerment culture, enabling people to make their own decisions. But I've also seen, I think Brian Chesky is pushing this very hard at the moment, this sort of founder mode strategy where it's very top down and everything falls in line. You simplify the roadmap and you give the commands to the rest of your team. How do you find managing a team of that size to be the most efficient?
If I'm really honest, it's not overly efficient. And we're actually in the middle of that right now as a company, where we just had our on site last week. We have what's called the Global Marketing Executive Team, where we all get together and break bread and talk about problems and try to come to the right answers. And there is a healthy tension there, right? Is what gets done at the center, what gets done in the business, and how do the two meet? How does the two meet? And so I think it happens through trust that you build with a team and getting to that right. The tension is good. The tension is very good. You don't want a big bureaucratic center who's saying, we're just going to do this and this and this, and we're just going to do it globally in English, ton, right? And you don't want to say everything has to be bespoke. That's how you ended up. Look, I have way too many websites. I have way too many vendors. I have way too many versions of things. When we launched the brand last year, we didn't even have one way of talking about T-Rowe price. The About Us section had to be standardized. Lots and lots of conversations to get, because people care about their business and they're saying, well, wait a minute, how do I feed myself in that? I understand you're trying to do something at the enterprise level, but is this going to affect my clients in some way? Those are healthy conversations. Is it the most efficient? No, it's not. But we struggle with this. We're asking ourselves, as a big, complex global organization, we actually just finished a piece of work. We had someone come in and do an outside-in review and asked us, are we getting this right? What are our competitors doing? And we're putting some plans in place to help make sure that can scale and be as efficient as we can while we work through that process.
I guess it's so hard because there's so much data now. So much data that how are you
Overwhelming.
going
Yeah.
to know more than someone that is in a local geography about their business?
I think, again, it comes back to structure. So we meet on a regular basis, and the CMO of our, EMEA business has a very strong voice around table that is driving both enterprise and segment. And if we're saying we think events should no longer be hybrid, should be 100% in person, we think people don't even care any longer about events. Well, which people? Well, that's not my experience. Well, in this market, this is a signature event. We have a signature piece of thought leadership. Here's how we're measuring it. I don't know where you're getting your data from, but this is what we're experiencing here. And again, it's a healthy tension and the trust that you have to create as a leader between your teams to have the right conversations.
You mentioned events, and it kind of brings me on to the big conversation that we've been having this year around how you allocate effort and budget behind different stages of the funnel. So you mentioned that you saw digital investment go from 5% to 50%. And we've seen across the financial industry, especially as we ask ourselves, like, why is everything becoming quite bland and monotonous and very similar? And often the answer is like an overinvestment in performance, an overinvestment in
That's
these
right.
direct lead gen channels like
That's right.
Facebook. And how are you thinking about that now? You're at T-Rowe price. Like, how are you balancing your spend and which channels are working effectively for you?
Yeah. So again, we had an outside-in view on this. There are statistics that come from companies that would say you should be spending at a minimum in financial services 60% on brand and 40% on performance. Some would say it's as high as 70-30. I think it depends upon where you are, right? When you look at our brand metrics, either locally or globally, what we stand for, what we want to stand for, the 2.0 version of T-Rowe price that we want to be known for, those are very bespoke to us. And so we do benchmarking all the time. And just because someone else is spending less than us doesn't mean that that's the right answer for us, because we are building a voice and a brand that's important to us around a certain set of metrics. And so I think it's really important to make sure you have that balance. We had this formula. So we had a company come in and help us figure out the words. We spent a year with Profit, they're a really great partner, to help define what exactly is our value proposition. And words matter. We argued over what do you mean by innovation? Well, what do you mean by innovation? What does innovation look like in our industry, right? Those kinds of conversations. And then you finally land on what I call page X, right? This is the page. It's our strategy, purpose, our vision. This is going to now get put into our entire organization, all of our sales kits, all of our collateral, all of our speeches. We all need to lather, rinse, repeat against this. Second phase was getting really breakthrough credit, to your point. If we saw one more couple, white couple, walking on a beach, older couple, right, or on a sailboat,
Happily retired.
Happily retired, like throw a puppy and a baby in there and you've got financial services advertising. We don't want to do that. So if you go and look at our work, it is very different. We hired a really terrific partner in Digitas, and they really helped us say, we want to reinvent the category. We used CGI. We created these really unusual stories that just, you actually don't know what's going on at first. There's so much activity. And then we introduced this notion of curiosity. And we really think curiosity is a great euphemism for active management, right? We're more curious. We ask better questions that get to these better outcomes. And it's really taken hold. The spots have done really well. We have one on clean water, one on AI, one on healthcare. By the way, we did this with our portfolio managers. We brought them together with our ad agency and let them story tell, which is what they do for our clients. That really helped. We were lost for a while on creative. And then we finally got there when we were working together with, they're our value proposition. They're our secret sauce. And so they helped us drive the creative that we're at right now. And now we're going down funnel. So we have the brand proposition. We now are saying, I talked to you about ETFs and SMAs. We were early leaders in the target date space, retirement space. So we're just taking that and driving it through everything we're doing across our platform and measuring it and really making sure we get, because look, I get the same pressure as everyone else saying, the brand stuff is nice, Theresa, but tell me, how this is connected to flows and like, why can't we talk about this? And why can't we talk about that? And you really have to be clear as to how we're spending those resources and making sure your messaging platform is not is not too broad, right? So that you can do everything that you need to do as it relates to the brand. But then you have to have platforms that break through, and that's where partnering with the Orioles or using sports helps you take out that whole formula and really amplify it.
There's so much packed in there that I think kind of distills, like you're a genius at making things sound easy, right?
I don't think I'm a genius, but thank you.
But, because it just you leave a conversation like this and you think, oh great, let's do that. But what I would like to dig into really is like, so you spent a year on copy, and you also mentioned your creative just wasn't right at the beginning. So you're delaying milestones until you think it's ready. How do you know when something is ready? What are you looking for?
We test it. So first and foremost, we tested it with clients up front. We connected it back to all that strategy work, right? So we said, does this creative symbolize the strategy work? Is this paying off on what we said our value proposition is? Then you go off and you do concept boards, tested it again, tweaked it. Then we used a pretty innovative new technique. I mean, there's so many new techniques now where you can get quick reads on creative and see where are people falling off? Where are they following? Where are they not? You can follow people's eyeballs as they're looking at work. We use that to help make it better and stronger and clearer. And that's everything we do is test and learn, test and learn, test and learn. But look, it's not as simple as that. At the end of the day, you like what you like. I like what I like. What moves you when you see a really great film or a piece of creative or listen to a piece of music? You can't bottle that. No one can bottle that. That's where judgment comes in, and hiring the right people and getting the right people around the table to challenge each other. And I'm fortunate that I have just an incredible team.
So when you're going through this testing process, do you have metrics in mind that you're looking to hit? Are you saying we're not going to launch until we have X amount of engagement?
Yeah. So when I was at TD, we use Millward Brown. Here we use a number of different partners. And we had thresholds. So we knew that a spot would do really well if it hit certain thresholds. I mean, you have to first and foremost have association with your brand. How many people have spent millions and millions of dollars to do a Super Bowl spot? We go, brand, who's the brand again? Right. So brand connection is really important. Simplicity. Well, it was really funny and they were dancing and everything. But tell me again, like, what was the product? What am I supposed to take away from that? I think talking babies are cool, but I don't know, was that about a retirement spot? So I think creative can get carried away. And that's where that trust between your agency and your team is really important too, right? So that you understand, look, at the end of the day, we are intersecting the sales. It's fun to be a marketer, but our job is to intersect the sales funnel and grow the business. We're not an island unto ourselves. And so we have a couple of metrics that we use, and we've got pretty good at it over time, that if you fail these metrics, the spot's not going to run. And then what's great is post-testing. You can run the spot and say, did you get it? What'd you get wrong? We found that the pacing was wrong. There was too many scenes. So we ended up having to cut some of the scenes back. We found that we suffered from exactly what I just said. People didn't associate with T. Rowe Price. So we actually did CSAT. We had the name, and then we set the name. Those are just a couple of examples.
And how do you manage that across channel? I'm still talking in sort of this brand awareness space. So that you spoke about TV spots, but I imagine this is going to go across digital and other platforms.
Digital is actually our first platform. That's where we spend the majority of our when I say media, it's largely first digital media. We use television as well, but largely digital media is really important to us and very measurable. As you can imagine, programmatic, you can test in real time and get real life data, right? And then you can look at engagement. We look at website engagement, not just hits, and our website traffic is up considerably. We also relaunched an enterprise website, right? That whole notion of we had all these different websites for all our different businesses, but there was no front door. So Google couldn't really figure out how to optimize SEO. And so we did that. And we know that our hits are up and our engagement is up and our clients are finding those other websites, but they're doing it through an enterprise front door.
And when you're creating the creative, are you doing that kind of digital first?
It's a great question. You do, in my opinion, I've done it both ways. I think it's really hard to do a shortened digital first version of a storyline. So my experience, you typically start with a 60 and then you say, okay, now we have to how do we make sure we're getting the same storyline through a 30? Some are using 15s and connecting people to landing pages to find out more. And you can test that, right? What format is working really well for you. It's expensive to do 60s, as you can imagine. But I think also in terms of selling it internally and helping people understand, well, what's the narrative here? Because if you haven't watched the spots, you can go to our site and see them. Very different than the industry and very different for historical T Rowe.
And you also mentioned there's the importance of staff. Where does that do you have like a roadshow? How are you getting buy-in across staff, and where does that come in your process to rolling out this brand work?
Yeah, so our associates, we write a lot of decks and we spend a lot of time socializing, measure, 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 measure. And so once you get the right number of constituents on board, then you're ready to go. Then we go fast. But we take our time to make sure that the right people are coming along and that they're getting their voice heard and their perspective heard. Creative's hard, right? The good news is that the people I work with know, hey, and they've said it to me, Teresa, you know more about marketing than I ever will. Like, we're not going to let you manage money. And so, but we're not going to, do marketing for you. Like, if you want my opinion, I'll give it to you. And, but we trust you. And we trust your team. But verify, by the way, trust but verify. Give me the data, show me it's working. And they should ask for that. It's a lot of money. So I think socializing and telling your story crisply, cleanly, non-marketing language, and helping people understand. I've said this now for many, many years. I'm not the customer. You're not the customer. It actually doesn't much matter whether I love it or not. What matters is that we've tested it with clients and that they love it and that they get it and that I'm filling their need.
I love that. And it's always a point of contention. I've met some CMOs that will only work for brands that they would be buyers of, and I've met others who can take a much more separated or scientific approach to driving emotional connection.
Well, look, and in all transparency, I was a passive investor for a very, very long time. And then I went to work for T Rowe and I understood the power of active investing. And I talked to our PMs and I understood what they do, the level of depth that they go to understand management teams, the questions that they ask. And I became an active investor. I changed the way I approached it because they didn't know, but they were marketing to me.
And one of the things we didn't talk about, so I think, I've got a really good picture of your approach to the top of the funnel is what's working how do you get the bottom of the funnel to work? How do you drive leads, especially in financial services?
Yeah. So look, we have a really good sales management function as a team that we stood up. And a peer of mine, a friend of mine is running that and doing a fabulous job. And we are now standardizing many of our approaches to sales management. We're making sure that Seismic is connected to Salesforce. We're making sure that there's playbooks so that when you are spending money on a marketing program, you are truly generating marketing qualified leads that your Salesforce can then nurture through the funnel. It's hard. It's hard to get every salesperson to go, you're going to go back in and log this and got to log. Also, AI is helping us. We've got some tests in place where we're saying, how do we take Salesforce notes and use AI, Copilot, to say, what are the learnings from this? How do we glean? And I just did a podcast yesterday on this topic for our Salesforce because we're piloting some of these programs to say, how do we create sales data? That's better than any first party, third party data is what my salespeople can help me understand as to how to better market to our clients and nurture those leads through the sales funnel. We have a direct to consumer business. We spend a lot of money against it. We were looking at, well, what happens when you hit the website? How many of them actually turn into sales during IRA season is one of our biggest seasons, right? if you have a high bounce rate as an example, what are you doing? How do you nurture that lead? And what does the digital experience look like? Maybe it's not about the targeting. Maybe it's about I had that experience at TD with credit cards. We ended up redoing the whole credit card site, and all of a sudden our sales went through our sticky sales, not just the leads, but because we made the digital experience better. So it really is end to end.
What did you change?
In the credit card example, we changed, I'll just give you one example, AML. So where we ask, knowing your customer is really important in financial services. So you have to ask a series of questions so that you can prove to me that you are who you say you are if you're opening an account. They're annoying, and it depends upon where you put them, right? And so if you haven't yet convinced me that I want products, you haven't told me enough about the features and the value proposition, but now I'm asking you for all this information too early in the process. I don't need to do this. It was too long. Our competitors were doing it in 15 seconds, right? It was taking us, 21 seconds. It's that level of granularity. We do it at T Rowe in what we call customer journeys, right? Just thinking through from the shopping phase all the way to becoming a client, having problems with us. What do we do in that situation? RFPs, DDQs, they put us through. All of that speaks to the brand and the experience. And I think we have to have a voice in that.
Well, you talk about TD Ameritrade, and one of the
It's
campaigns that
TD Bank. I worked for TD
oh,
Bank.
TD Bank. You spoke about TD
Yeah.
Bank. And one of the campaigns that I referenced up front is the ATM campaign, the thank you campaign.
Yes.
And it resonated so strongly. What did you get right then? And what are some of the insights that kind of lead you to a campaign that you know is really going to resonate?
Yeah. So TD, and you're not wrong. Ameritrade was a subsidiary of our company, and we worked with them closely, very, very much. They were part of the TD brand, but I was the global CMO. And one of the things that was important to them is something that every bank wanted to say, which is that we have better experience than anybody else. And we know you better, right? They didn't need a year to do that. When I got there, they were talking about it in a different way. They were talking about comfort. They had a chair that they were using in Canada, and 65% of the market understood that chair meant comfortable banking. And so we did research that said people don't want comfortable banking. They need, similar to T Rowe, they need to feel confident. And the way they can do that is by you knowing my needs and personalizing your services to me. It's not the inside. So we wanted to break through the clutter. So we turned automatic teller machines into automatic thanking machines. And we got stories of our clients branch by branch. And when they came in, we had people who were actually in the box themselves. I'll give you an example. Someone who was a lifelong Blue Jays. We did a partnership with the Blue Jays. And so out came these tickets. And then behind came the player and started throwing the ball around with them. And we were filming. There was a woman whose daughter was sick and she didn't have the money to travel. We knew that through the branch manager. We surprised these clients because our branch managers knew their stories. We didn't have to go ask the client. And then we filmed when we gave her tickets to go see her daughter. It went viral globally as to how we turn them into thanking machines. And now they just passed 10 years of doing the thank you program. It's morphed into different ways. But why is that important? I think, State Street did a great job with Fearless Girl. It became bigger than the whole company, this idea. I think a kernel of a great idea can really, it's what we talked about earlier, just touch you in ways that can really elevate the whole brand. And that's what that was designed to do.
And why do you think that financial services often fall short? I think, we've spoken to a handful of the best CMOs, and I think what they manage to do is bring emotion into banking and financial
Yeah,
services.
totally.
But that's a small handful. Why do you think most financial services, where does that fall down in the process?
It's a really great question because as an industry, right? Think about any product that you buy. I bought a car recently. I'm not crazy about it. I'm going to trade it in at some point, get something different. Not going to change my life. It gets me from point A to point B. I bought a mixer and it doesn't do the features I want. I go get a different one. But if you get your financial services, if you don't save enough for retirement, if you don't have enough money to put your kids through school, if you don't have enough money to live paycheck to paycheck as inflation is going through the roof, it matters. what we do matters more than any other category. And so I am perplexed as you are as to why financial services firms tend to go to the same old tropes and the same old film and tell the same old story. I can't speak to it. I just know it's been my lifelong career, and I've just been fortunate enough to work with great brands and great people and be able to do really great storytelling.
Well, you've done a fantastic job. And another thing that you've done a fantastic job with, and I wonder if this is a part of your sort of success in driving this transformation, is that you also, I think this is true at Tiro and also at TD, that you also are responsible for the digital and customer experience layer. So you can go beyond just, the marketing layer that sits on top. How important is it in your role that you can make changes across the customer experience?
Hugely important. So I mentioned to you that at T Rowe, we had a decentralized marketing team, and any business could go and create their own website. Nothing wrong with that. It got them to market very fast. They were able to grow the business. All that makes good sense. But then you reach scale, which is where T Rowe is at now, and you say, hey, search matters, whether you're a business client or an end consumer. If I'm looking at retirement and T Rowe comes on page 3, our target date, and we come on page 4, it matters. How do you fix that? I don't need to speak marketing language. At the management committee, I can say, take your phone out right now, everyone, and search for target date. Where does it come up? Right? Well, what problem are we solving? Okay, there's a way to fix this. And it starts with us having an enterprise site that talks to Google, and then we can elevate, right? That's how you tell the story, right? No one cares about all this marketing jargon. It is but that's part of the experience. Are all of our products on our website? Are they searchable? Are they in language? Remember that 1 year we took to say our value proposition? Is that value proposition, that language embedded in how we talk about ourselves globally? We have a lot of work to do, right? Or put up on a wall all the assets that we have and say branded, not branded. We still have a long way to go.
You need a
You
big
can't do
wall.
it. We need a big wall.
Yeah, it's a very big wall. Well, I think what's interesting, is, and what's very clear is that you set a very strong foundation. And I think showing that you're 3 years in and you're still talking about the amount of work to be done, but you have that base foundation that is going to scale up, kind of sets the tone for other CMOs. Why do you think, I think we've spoken about language of business, we've spoken about understanding the customer, building out those journeys, having a strong hold on metrics. Why do you think CMOs often struggle when they come into the C-suite? So one of the big differences with your career versus many other CMOs is you've had very long tenure at the businesses that you've been a global CMO at. Whereas I think that, most CMOs are out within 3-4 years. Why do you think that is? Like, why have you been successful? But also, what do you think it is that's setting CMOs up for failure?
So someone told me yesterday, I was at this conference, they said the tenure has dropped from 2.5 to 1 year for a CMO, which that seems insane to me.
Wow.
I know why. It's a mismatch of expectations, right? It absolutely is a mismatch of expectations coming in. I mean, I went through 20 interviews at T Rowe before I took the job. I went through 25 at TD. They knew me. I knew them. You said you've talked to people about me. They talked to plenty of people about me. You can't hide from your reputation, right? And so I think it's really important that you understand the culture you're going into, that you understand how people think, and that you have really clear understanding of their expectations. I've made some mistakes in that in my career. I absolutely have. Wrong company, total mismatch of what I thought they wanted versus what I thought I could deliver. And so that happens. People make bad choices sometimes, but largely I've made very good choices. And I'm very proud of that. But I think it is about a mismatch of expectations. Just going back to my comment on the brand. I'm facing this with my own company, right? I've only been there 3 years. We launched the brand about a year ago. There's not a day, week, month that goes by that says, yes, the brand name removed. Let me remind you, we take the shoot out. This is what's long term. This is some green shoots. And you just have to there's just an education when you're a marketer coming into a non-marketing company that you have to do. And you can get frustrated about it. You just have to say, let me remind you of, here's some green shoots. But you also can't have your head in the sand, right? The company has way too many asks for that capital. you have to be constantly showing your value and demonstrating we're doing the right thing. This investment is going to pay off for us. Let me show you why. Let me show you some examples of where it is. Here's where I'm asking you to trust me. Here's what we're testing. Here's what we're learning. A marketer who is just off in a corner and not engaging with the CFO and head of technology, you're not going to win. It's a team sport, for sure. Where I sit in the global distribution team. I'm very fortunate about that because they're the ones who are selling the products and driving the revenue for the organization. So marketing has a clear voice around the table.
I love that. And it's also something that Niels Leonard, who we had on recently, referenced as the most important point to drive, real good creative work is to make sure those expectations are set from the minute you first meet with any exec team, so that
Absolutely.
everyone understands this is important and we're here to drive change, not just to do what's always come in the past.
Absolutely. No doubt.
Well, I finish all of my interviews asking for advice for other CMOs. So this year is a particularly challenging year. I think we mentioned CMO tenure is actually declining, but budgets are getting squeezed. We mentioned the challenge around performance marketing. As someone who has successfully stayed the long term in the CMO seat, what's your number one piece of advice right now, given the current environments going into 2025 for CMOs to be thinking about and to put in place?
So look, I think a couple of things. I'm facing it myself, so I'll take my own advice, is prioritization. There are way too many opportunities for marketing to have a voice than there are people and dollars to spend it against. AI. If one more person says, AI is going to solve X, Y, and Z, the reality is I think we're all dipping our toe in the water as it relates to AI. None of them are going to get solved overnight. My team suffers from this all the time. It's like we have really clear priorities at the top of the house, but then marketing can tend to make, let's try this or let's try that. If you're creative, you want to launch a lot of ships. And I think it's really important to say, narrow your focus, narrow your metrics, be really simple, be really clear for non-marketers to say, and then carry that 3-pager around every single conversation, whether it's a coffee with somebody or whether it is coming to a meeting and say, just let me remind you, these are the 3 things that we said we're going to focus on. And so I think it is about focus and prioritization.
I love that. And what a fantastic way to end a very valuable episode. Theresa, I wish you the best of luck with T Rowe
Thank you, Max.
and your continued work. And thank you so much for spending the time with us here on the Finimize podcast.
I really enjoyed it and look forward to watching more of your podcasts. They're terrific. So thanks again for having me.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Okay. Bye-bye.